Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, welcome to Conservatives Cool Talk Radio. This is your host, Wayne Bradley. Thank you for joining me on this Fix Michigan Monday show. Got a lot going on tonight. We've got 1 week left here into the election, and it's never more critical how it is from here in Michigan and across the country. So tonight we're going to talk to a guest who's running for Congress, Jocelyn Amash, who I think brings in a whole different transparency in the way things need to be done in government. I really look forward to for the listeners who are listening in tonight to meet this gentleman and again see what kind of the future holds for some of our leadership here in this country. Because again, no matter where you live in the country, if you listen to this, Justin will have an effect on the laws, and trust me, he will vote with conviction. So he actually will make a difference in Congress. So tonight, I hope you'll join me. The call-in number is 347-996-3175. I'm supposed to have J.J. Johnson on the show, and I think that's him calling in right now. So we're going to take this call right now. Caller, you on the air?
Yeah, hi, Wayne. How are you?
All right, how are you doing tonight?
Good. It's Jim Johnson calling. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me this evening. I was just telling everybody that I thought you might be calling in soon. Are you still on the road?
Yeah, I'm on the Ohio Turnpike heading back to Detroit.
Excellent.
My 14-year-old son plays football in Ohio, and I went down to his junior varsity game today.
Ah, you're so lucky. As a man with two girls, I'm very jealous.
Well, you get to go to all the dance competitions.
Oh, thanks. Thanks a lot. That's great. How are things going here now? We're getting here into the crunch time. We got 1 week left here. I'm telling all the voters how important, how crucial this vote is, not only in the state of Michigan but across the country. What are you seeing here in the state of Michigan that's really ringing true as far as the voters and the way they're voting this time around?
Well, one thing that I've noticed all along, and, I've been a member of the Tea Party really since the very beginning of it, going back to April 15th of 2008, 2009. And, what the question everybody had then was, can this energy be sustained through the midterm elections?
Right.
And I personally believe that not only has it been sustained, that it's increased, and I think it's going to even increase more after the midterm elections going into the presidential campaign of 2012. I think it's a for real movement, and I think, here's my crazy notion of the world, Wayne. In some respects, I think that the election of Barack Obama was one of the best things that could have happened for this country, because it has exposed the progressive movement's plan that has been creeping into our system for the past 100 years, quietly, in an evolutionary way, not a revolutionary way, but an evolutionary way, so that the rest of us, we go about our daily lives and don't pay attention to any of this over the past several decades, have missed it. We didn't identify it. All of a sudden, the president has turned out to be such a radical, governed from the left president that we've all pulled our heads out of the sands and looked around and say, my God, what in the world has happened over the last 50 or 60 years to us?
Right. And I think that you're right about that. People, both sides, both parties have a stake in the way things are now. And so, with the Tea Party movement, I believe that's really woke up, like you said, grassroots people that kind of maybe weren't involved before, weren't paying as much attention, and now you woke up a whole section of people that might not have been paying attention before. Yeah,
there's a great line from one of the movies about Pearl Harbor when the Japanese attacked us, and the admiral in charge steaming across the Pacific on one of his ships after he got news of the attack says, I fear we have woken a sleeping giant. And he was right.
Right.
And I see, members of the progressive movement saying, oh, my God, I fear we've woken a sleeping giant and exposed ourselves. And I think They have. And I think now the national debate should be, and I'm not, hey, look, there is a point of view that the progressives have about how this country should be run. I think it differs from what our republic was founded on, those principles. But if they have a legitimate case, then let's have that national dialogue. Let's not hide it. Let's not bury it and slowly, piece by piece, dismantle our republic. Let's have a national dialogue about how we want the United States of America to be. Let's have the dialogue.
Do you think that's the biggest problem right now when you look at the way the landscape, the political landscape is, in particular with liberals? They don't seem to want to have open dialogue. I mean, you could look at it from a media perspective. You can look at it from the political ranks. They are not interested in having that open dialogue that we obviously need.
Well, you may have a point there, but what I'm arguing is I think those of us that have a conservative point of view are willing to have that dialogue. Let's what are your ideas? What do you guys want? What is it about this country that you haven't liked for 100 years, and what do you want to change? Which direction? What is the direction you want to go in? What's your ultimate goal? What's your end game? And I think that. I'm not going to put words in any of their mouths, but it appears from everything they've done, it's more of a, sort of nanny state, European-style socialist approach to governing. And if that's what they believe in, then let's hear their argument about why that's a better way. Okay. But you're right. They don't seem to want to have that discussion. Two examples last week, and I think there are lots of examples out there, but two examples last week, and they both have to do with our view of the Muslim world. The ladies with the View walking out on Bill O'Reilly, and then the firing of Juan Williams by NPR. Both would go to your point that liberals on the left don't want to have the dialogue. It's our way or the highway.
Yeah, I think that's the frustrating part, because I was speaking with Mike Rogers, and he was speaking to his disappointment in the fact that, in D.C., that these guys are not, right now anyway, are willing to listen to any other views but their own, and that's kind of what's caused this whole, stalemate in D.C., and you have people going back and forth and nothing's getting done, and the people are being used as pawns, essentially. Well,
yeah, and it's laughable when President Obama campaigned on, first of all, transparency, but second of all, that he wanted to embrace the other side and entertain their ideas. And he kept saying that even after he was elected during the whole health care debate. But it became very apparent that he wanted, people on the right to sign off on his agenda, especially health care, lock, stock, and barrel, without entertaining any of their ideas. That's his idea of bipartisanship. Get the other side to see it my way. Right. And that's a joke. That's not fair.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's not fair. It's not balanced. That's a very disingenuous attitude to have about bipartisanship. I want the other side to do it my way. That's my idea of bipartisanship. Doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. Here in the state of Michigan, as we're going through the last week here, we've got some, a lot of the races seem to be more wide open as far as, the Republican Party is really leading in a lot of the different categories. Do you think that as far as the governor's race, Rick Snyder's winning it by a large percentage there, do you think it's a case of where people are saying they're tired of what was going on, or that these are just simply the candidates that they had to offer, and people are just obviously choosing the better of the two?
Well, my personal, honestly, in the case of the governor's race, I think it's a little of both, especially when you get a liberal newspaper like the Detroit Free Press actually endorsing the Republican candidate. That was kind of shocking to me this last weekend. But I think it's all part of, I think there's a lot of different things going on when you're talking about Michigan. First of all, if you want to look at it from the national point of view, Michigan, like voters all over the country, are not happy with the policies of this administration in Washington. and I think they're expressing. I think they're going to be expressing that dissatisfaction. Then, more importantly, a bigger part of it is we've had 8 years of Democratic leadership in the state of Michigan, and you got to ask yourself, are we better off than we were 8 years ago? And the answer is a resounding no. We're far, far worse off. So I think that the Democrats, I don't think whoever the candidates were, for the most part, the Democrats had much of a chance of winning the governorship this time around. I think that the economy in Michigan and the unemployment in Michigan is just so outrageously bad right now. The Democrats didn't stand a chance anyway.
Okay. And
so a little of both.
Is that the prevailing factor? You think that's the prevailing factor also in the Secretary of State race? Because, I mean, you have Jocelyn Benson against Ruth Johnson, and Ruth was actually the last person to enter the race as far as from the Republican field, and she still, as it looks at this point, is beating Jocelyn Benson in a lot of the polls.
I don't know this for sure, but I feel personally that Ruth Johnson, although getting into the race late, that she has a more recognizable name than Jocelyn Benson did to start with. I think that the conservatives did a pretty good job of hanging George Soros' MoveOn.org around Jocelyn Benson's neck, and I think that was a negative for her as well. And yes, I think that the prevailing feelings about the state of Michigan under the control of the Democrats has been that has been absolutely unsuccessful, and let's try it a different way. I don't think it's the fact so much that they're in love with the Republicans or the Republican candidates. I just think that they are dissatisfied with the way the Democrats have handled the state of Michigan the last 8 years, and are ready for a change. And the way our political system works is right now, anyway, you got one choice or the other. You can either go Democrat or you can go Republican. Democrat hasn't worked for the last 8 years. Let's give the Republicans another shot at it. Not that we're that thrilled with them, but what the heck? They could be the lesser of two evils. They could be the lesser of two evils this time around. I think that's a big part of it.
I agree with you. As far as the attorney general race, which I think is an interesting race because you have a long-time prosecutor going against someone that's a judge, and Bill Schuette is still handily winning in that poll. How do you think that translates, considering the fact that he actually has more of the prosecuting experience in comparison to Bill Schuette?
Well, again, I mean, I think it's all part of the same issue, Wayne. I think that, if you have a D attached to the end of your name, you're going to have a problem this time around.
Right.
And I think that, prosecutor or no, you're talking about a guy who has been a fairly well-respected judge.
Right.
And I think that, I think people look at his history, his resume, and say, here's a guy that's qualified for the job. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Bill Schuette probably could have run for governor and done okay based on his qualifications. He just seems like a solid citizen.
Yeah, I actually asked him about that the first time I had him on the show, and he said I was going to get him in trouble if he had to answer that question.
The one I'm really anxious to find out about is if Gary Peters can be unseated by Rocky Reshkowski. That's really going to be the
biggest race that we have in this area, the most hotly contested one. That's going to be very interesting.
Well, I mean, the conventional wisdom, even as long as 9 months ago, was that neither Welday or Reshkowski could beat Gary Peters, an incumbent where you would expect a lot of outside money to be coming into his campaign to help him. Well established, he's got he should at least have built up a pretty good base and certainly a pretty good machine in both Oakland County and in Washington D.C. And yet, because of the dissatisfaction with the policies of the Obama administration, is a guy this is a race that's winnable for the Republicans. And it shouldn't, under normal circumstances, in normal times, you wouldn't think it would be, but this time it is. And things have changed in 9 months, and the energy is still there from the right to voice their opinion. And here's where I think the day will be won a week from tomorrow, and that's going to be in voter turnout. I think the Tea Party movement and the conservatives of this country, because of the work of the Tea Party movement, have been energized and awakened and are motivated, highly motivated, to go out and make a difference next Tuesday. I'm not sure you can say the same about the energy on the left. I think they used up their energy in the love affair with Barack Obama 2 years ago, and I think that there's going to be a lot of people who sit this one out. And, you read the same numbers I do all around the country. I'm sure they're the same in Michigan. The independent voter who went largely for Barack Obama is now disenchanted with Mr. Obama, and those numbers are shifting back to the Republicans.
Yep, that's what it looks like throughout the whole country as far as that. So you're going to have a lot of fall off, and again, you have a lot of Democrats that can't even be proud of their own voting record because of some of the policies that are so unpopular amongst their constituents.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, obviously the biggest among them is health care, and they have to, they're running away from that in droves. But I think, and, I could be wrong. I'm no expert on any of this. I just have an opinion and a big mouth. But that's why I think the voter turnout can still make a difference in a lot of these races that have tightened based on polling in the last couple of weeks. Even as far as Delaware goes, even as far as Connecticut goes, while both of those races look like they're going to go to the Democrats in both very blue states, I still hold out some hope that next Tuesday the voter turnout is going to make the difference.
I agree. I think that will make the biggest difference in a lot of these places where even some of the the long shot Republicans are given a shot right now. The voter turnout will be key.
Absolutely. And it's going to be interesting also, Wayne, to see if there are any cases of voter fraud. We know there's going to be voter fraud. It's just a question of seeing this time around how widespread it is. I think the spotlight
they're already talking about lawyering up. I was just watching something earlier today about, I think, the governor's race in West Virginia. They're already lawyering up for the vote because it's just that close in these places.
That's exactly right. And there's another great example for you of how Obama is driving this election. That's a race that this guy Joe Manchin should win without even campaigning.
Right.
and given the fact that and he's a very moderate Democrat, very moderate in a blue state, but because of the dissatisfaction with the policies of the Obama administration, he may go down to a Republican candidate just based on that alone, and that's a big turnaround in 2 years for how people felt about this guy when they voted for him for president.
Yes, it has. It's been a very, very quick turnaround there. Who do you see out there coming in 2010 as far as new Congress people? Like I've got Jocelyn Amash coming on tonight. Who do you see as some of the people that might be really making a difference, possibly being elected in the Congress?
In the state of Michigan, or are you talking about in the
across the country? I mean, like I said, Justin is one of the people I'm keeping an eye on. Who are some of the other people you think that really can make a difference here coming up in 2010?
Boy, that's a tough question because to be honest with you, I have not studied the personalities as much as I have just the situations within certain states, like Ohio, that I'm driving through right now. The governor's race there is tightening. The senatorial race here, it looks to me like the Republican's going to win. And one of the things they're talking about down here is that a lot of these Democratic seats in the House of Representatives are going to flip, in Ohio anyway, to Republican candidates. Now, I don't know who the candidates are, so I don't know which one of them is strong, which one of them has good ideas and opinions. I just know that the way the mood of the country is and the expectations of the conservatives is no longer are we looking at just Republican candidates. We're looking for Republican candidates with certain values, small government, cutting
Exactly.
spending, cutting taxes. And I don't know who these guys are, but I will trust that the electorate who is making the changes, who are putting Republicans in the seats that Democrats held, are putting in the kind of Republicans that are going to make that difference. We shall see.
I agree. Well, I think my next guest, who I'll have coming on soon, Jocelyn Amash, is definitely one of those kind of guys that should be making that kind of difference. If the state voters any indication, we should be in good hands with him.
I think one of the guys that you mentioned speaking to earlier, Mike Rogers, is one of those guys that can make a difference. One of my favorite moments during the national debate on health care is when President Obama was giving his address to Congress on health care. It wasn't the State of the Union. It was on health care. And he specifically said that the Republicans have not come to him with any ideas, and he's got his doors open, and he's there standing with open arms for these Republican ideas to help the health care debate, and yet he's seen none of them. And Mike Rogers was the first one to stand up with a whole group of congressional members, all holding a big package of paper in their hands, holding it up in front of him from the upper balcony to say, not only do we have ideas, here they are on paper, and we've been trying to get an audience with you for months now, and you have not allowed us in.
Right.
And that was one of my favorite moments. So I think Mike Rogers is one of those guys. I think, this guy in Wisconsin, Paul Ryan, is also, and again, I'm not addressing the newcomers. Time will tell about those. But these are some of the people in there that are already somewhat established, who I have a great deal of respect for, who I look for leadership from in Washington, D.C. Paul Ryan is definitely one of them. In fact, I'd like to see Paul Ryan consider making a run for the White House.
That's a solid pick. He definitely has the momentum to do that. It's just obviously it's going to really depend on the field in 2012.
Yeah, well, I mean, the part of the problem with some of the conservative Republicans out there is their disapproval factor is so high. I love Sarah Palin, but she doesn't poll very well. I love Michelle Bachmann, but she doesn't. And I love her to death, but she doesn't poll very well. You take a guy like I have a mental block right now, but there are some other potential conservative candidates out there that have too many negatives that they don't seem to be electable. But Paul Ryan is a guy to me that seems to not be an extremist, but has very good, solid conservative values. And you know what? The guy appears to me anyway to be very bright.
Right. I agree with that. That's a good call. Well, we're going to be watching these races coming up very closely. I'll probably see you at somebody's victory party next week, and I thank you so much for coming on the show, JJ.
Thanks for the invitation, Wayne. As always, I enjoyed chatting with you, and hope you have a good rest of the show. Good night, and thanks to your listeners for staying with us.
Thank you so much. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. That was J.J. Johnson, a respected voice here in the Michigan area. He had a show for quite a very long time on the radio here, and I appreciate him for calling in and giving his expertise and his knowledge on what's going on here in Michigan and also across the country, because I think we're a microcosm of what's going on. People are frustrated throughout the country, and again, it shows, it's reflecting in the new candidates that are being voted in, again, on both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, and we're really going to be looking for some new leaders, and some of the people that I've had on the show, I'm really hoping I get to see in Congress, Jocelyn Benson being one, Alan West being another. We're going to really have to push hard for Sean Beelet in the next week, Ilario Pantano, Rocky Rakowski. I mean, we've talked to a lot of people that can represent the future of this direction of this country. So we just got to push hard. Star Parker out in California. We've got some really tough races. John Haller, who can't even get a debate here in the Detroit area because, Hanson Clark doesn't want to talk issues. He's running off emotions, and that's what he's got his voters on, so he does not mind the idea of not actually debating the issues. And again, I think the people of that district deserve that, but time will tell, see if that will have an effect here on the voting next Tuesday. But we really, again, people listening in, you've got to support the right candidates. Just because it has a Republican by their name doesn't necessarily mean it's the right candidate. But hopefully we decided that in the primary and got the right person in there. So, again, the candidates that we're looking at here in 2010 are some of the people that are going to be making some of the decisions regarding health care. Again, my next guest, Jocelyn Amash, is someone that's a state rep that, again, he pays attention to every bill that comes across to him, and he votes on it after he reads the bill. If he doesn't get enough time to vote on it, he votes no. Unlike a lot of these politicians that we have out here that vote on stuff, don't even look at the bill, I don't think that that's going to be a problem with Justin. He also posts all his votes on Facebook. So, again, this is something totally different, something that's simple to do, but yet a lot of the politicians and leaders that we have now don't feel that they have to do that. And, again, it's showing that these new candidates, people that are supported by the Tea Party movement, are people that are going to reflect their constituents and the people, the voters, and not just the special interest groups and things of that nature that permeate through the D.C. culture that tend to ruin even good candidates. That once they get there, you have all these guys working on them trying to get what they want, and we just have to keep our leaders honest. We have to call more town hall meetings. We have to sit down so they know exactly what their constituents want. I think a lot of times these leaders have had just a great job in D.C. where they don't have to show up or listen to anybody or understand what their constituents want. They say they voted for me. That's what that's where their responsibility ends to the voters, to the people in their area. So again, I think here's my next guest calling in, and I'm really looking forward to this. So let me bring one there. Caller, you're on the air. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, this is Justin Amash.
Justin, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Welcome to the show. Thanks for calling in this evening.
No problem.
Hey, look, I've been, for the people that are not familiar with you, I'm very familiar with you here in Michigan, and again, I've been posting a lot of your information here on Twitter and Facebook for the last hour. Can you give the listeners some more information on Justin Amash and give them an introduction?
Oh, absolutely. And thanks for having me on the show today. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm the state representative over in the 72nd District. That's southeast of Grand Rapids in the southern part of Kent County. I was born in Grand Rapids, lived in Kentwood, grew up in Kentwood, met my wife in high school at Grand Rapids Christian High School, and we got married while I was in law school at the University of Michigan. I also studied economics at the University of Michigan for my undergrad degree. I've worked as a
Spartan.
Yeah. Sorry. But go blue. But I also have worked as a business lawyer in downtown Grand Rapids and have worked in small business with my family. My dad owns a hand tool supply business here in the Grand Rapids area.
Now, what would be, like I said, I've kind of followed you a lot here on Facebook. A lot of people don't understand that you actually post all your voting online on Facebook. Is that something you plan on continuing if elected to Congress? Yeah,
that's something I plan to continue to do. It's one of the reasons I decided to run for Congress. And just to let the listeners know, what I do is every day when we're in session in the State House, on the House floor while I'm voting on bills, I will post and explain every single bill that I vote on so that people at home can know exactly why I voted the way I did and can find out what the vote tally is, how many people were for it, how many people were against it, and can ask me any questions they want about it, and I'll do my best to answer them right on the spot.
Great. Now, what will be the first thing that you would tackle if elected to Congress? What will be one of your first issues that you would need to tackle?
Well, I think we have to look at this health care legislation and make sure we have something in place that actually reduces costs. And I think right now, the way it's been written, I know that there was a lot of people who thought it was written with good intentions, but at the end of the day, it's going to be something that raises costs on everyone and has a lot of problems. So we got to tackle that, make sure that we're going after health care in a way that reduces costs, expanding the use of HSAs, allowing insurance to be sold across state lines, allowing more pooling for companies, allowing an individual deduction just like employers have. There are a lot of ways to keep healthcare costs down, and that's what we really have to tackle first thing.
Right. Do you think defunding it is going to be the best way to deal with that, or is it going to be, obviously we're trying to just repeal it outright?
Yeah, I mean, you got to go both routes. First, the big problem with it, and the main reason I'd be for an all-out repeal, is that it's not constitutional. You can't require someone in the United States to purchase something. That's never been done by the federal government, where the federal government says to live in this country you have to buy something, and that's a dangerous precedent to set, and that's not constitutional. So that's the reason. That's the main reason for wanting to repeal it. Besides all the expenses that it's going to add, but then you should also try to defund it. If you can't get the thing repealed right away, you've got to do what you can to try to defund it, and at the same time work on reforms that will actually reduce costs.
Do you consider yourself a constitutionalist?
Yeah, I would say that. Yes, absolutely. That's how I describe myself. I'm a conservative. I believe in the Constitution. The first obligation as a member of Congress is to abide by the Constitution. That's what you swear an oath to. And so it's important that every member of Congress take the Constitution seriously.
Yeah, I saw that you were endorsed by Ron Paul, so I knew that you had to be someone that obviously studies that Constitution. Yeah, absolutely. It's the most important document that we can live by when it comes to how our government operates. And so you can't be a member of Congress and not take the Constitution seriously. If you're not going to pay attention to the Constitution, then you shouldn't be running for Congress. Right. Now your opponent, he seems to be a supporter of big government, and I mean he actually called the Obama health care as a step forward. What can you for the people listening understand, so they can understand the true differences between you and your opponent? What are they?
Well, there's big differences. There's differences on transparency. There's differences on whether we need to read the bills. There's differences on health care. Like you said, he called Obamacare a step forward. I think it's a step backward, and we have very big differences there. He's pro-choice, I'm pro-life. When it comes to reading the bills, I co-sponsored a joint resolution as a state legislator that said that legislators and the public should be given at least 72 hours to read a bill before voting on it, and he called that irresponsible. And I don't know how that could be irresponsible to read a bill before voting on it.
Now that's happened before, where you didn't get the time to read a bill, and you've actually voted no on some bills just on the strength that you have not had a chance to read the whole bill through, haven't you? That's right. I mean, you got to do that. We have an obligation to the people. There are real lives at stake here. It's not a joke when you're working as a legislator or as a member of Congress. This is a serious job, and if we're not given time to read and understand these bills, we should vote no. And we've had bills in the state legislature where they are thrown on, and literally the first time I see the bill is the time I'm voting on it. And if that's the case and I don't have time to review it, I have to vote no. And in the state legislature especially, you have to vote no, because you can't just vote present. You have to vote yes or no. Okay, and I'm sure that will carry on, because obviously when we're hearing people like Nancy Pelosi say things like we just have to pass the bill first and then we'll read it, we obviously we can't have that kind of thing going on here with our Congress. I still can't believe she said that. And John Conyers said he doesn't have time to read all that. Yeah, he said, what good is it to read the bill if you don't have I think a bunch of lawyers and 2 days or something. But whatever the case, we've had too many people passing these bills in Congress where they say, well, we'll find out what's in it afterwards. That's not acceptable to the American people. It doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat or Independent. It's not acceptable to pass legislation without knowing what's in it. I totally agree, and like I said, a lot of people are finally being awakened to that. The fact that our elected leaders have been doing this anyway, that they've just been voting on things and passing bills without ever, reading, the legislation that they're pushing through. Yeah, and that's the part of the importance of transparency, which I've emphasized so much. It's that if I can get to Congress like I've done in the State House and explain to people at home exactly what I'm doing, how I'm voting on each bill,
What are the implications? What are the unintended consequences? What kind of shenanigans are going on? Are they, for example, if we're having trouble passing the budget on time, I'll bet a lot of people at home didn't know that the majority party can just stop the clock in the chamber, so that time actually stops, and you can. This is serious. They can stop the clock so that October 1 never comes, because the budget has to be done by October 1. So if they're running late, they just stop the clock. They flip a switch in the chamber, the clock stops, and October 1 never comes. Now, this is the kind of stuff that goes on in the legislature. It's the kind of stuff that goes on in Congress that the public needs to know about, so we can hold our elected officials accountable.
I agree. You're so right about that. A lot of people just have no idea of some of the stuff that that goes on. Now you're pretty young. I just saw an article. You were in the 40 under 40. How long have you actually been involved here in politics?
Well, the first time I ran for any office was running for state representative, and that was I started my run in 2007. And so before that, I've been involved in the Republican Party. I volunteered on a number of campaigns. In fact, my first work as a staff member was on Bill Hardeman's campaign for state senate. That was back in 2002, where I volunteered and spent a summer doing that. And since then, I've stayed involved in the party and decided to make a run when I thought that there weren't enough responsible people in the state legislature.
What's been your experience with the Tea Party movement?
It's been a good experience. I mean, these are primarily grassroots people who are, many of them are small business owners. Other of them are people who have been laid off from work because the economy is so bad. It's got a lot of diverse people in it, and it's people who are just fed up with government trying to control everything and hurting our lives. I mean, government-run health care, bailouts, massive spending, higher taxes. These are the kind of things that are really destroying our economy, destroying jobs, and people in the Tea Party movement and other grassroots movement are sick and tired of it.
I agree. Are you a supporter of fair tax legislation? Do you think that's something that needs to be looked at as far as tax reform here in obviously in America?
I think it's something that needs to be looked at. I think our tax code in general needs to be looked at, and whether it's the fair tax or some other type of reform, those are all good options to consider, because our current tax system is so convoluted that nobody knows how to pay their taxes anymore, and IRS is taking control of everything. So we need to have a system that's simpler and cleaner and easier to figure out.
And I got another question here. What do we need to do to fix our issues with tightening up our borders? What do you suggest that we need to do?
I mean, my suggestion is something that I think both parties are aware of, but neither party seems to take seriously. We got to secure the border with more force at the border. I mean, we can't just sit around and try to impose security after the fact. The problem with the approach the United States has been taking and that many states are starting to take is we're waiting for illegal immigrants to get into the country, and then we're saying, let's go after them. Let's stop them before they get in here.
Exactly. And what do you think that they should do with a lot of obviously we have a lot of illegal immigrants now. Do we just, like you said, tighten up the borders and then start dealing with these immigrants on a case-by-case basis, or do we start looking at the employers that are hiring all these people?
Well, I think if employers are hiring people illegally, obviously that's something you need to look at. You can't have employers who are illegally hiring people in this country. But at the same time, the first thing is stop new people from coming in. I mean, secure that border, and then you need some kind of comprehensive reform that will allow people to enter this country to work and then go back to their own country. But we have to have a regulated system here for immigration. We can't have a completely open border like we used to have in the past few centuries. We have too much of a system built on government help and government assistance, and it's costing taxpayers a lot of money. And we need to make sure that we have a regulated system for immigration.
Exactly. And what do you think we need to do obviously there's a lot of different suggestions. What do you think we need to do to get America back to get America back to work as far as making it a better place to do business here in America? What do you think we need to do?
Well, one of the things we can do is cut our corporate tax rate. Our corporate tax rate is at 35%, which is among the highest in the world. Most of the developed countries in the world are at 25% or something lower than what we have. So let's cut that corporate tax rate. Let's make it a better place to do business here. That's why we're losing a lot of our jobs across the world, because our corporate tax rate is really bad. And then we got to have a government that's not intervening all the time. Instead of doing these massive stimulus programs or bailouts, why don't we just put more money in leave more money in people's pockets? You leave more money in people's pockets, they'll spend it the way they think is appropriate. And that's a system we've always had in this country, and it's worked so well for us in the past. Free competition, allow people to compete and sell their goods to customers, and allow customers to pick what they want to buy.
I couldn't say it much better myself there, Justin. For people who want to know more about your campaign, what's the website should they go to?
They should go to amashforcongress.com. That's AMASH, amashforcongress.com, or facebook.com/Justin Amash.
All right. And what you're here in the last week here, what are you doing as far as events? Where are you going to be heading in the next couple of days?
Well, we'll be having events every day like we have around the clock. We're going to spend a lot of time in Berry and Ionia County. This is a 3-county district. It's Kent, Berry, and Ionia. So we're going to spend a lot of time in those counties and making sure we cover the entire district, not just the Grand Rapids area.
Okay. Well, I wish you best of luck, Justin. It looks like you're ahead here, but let's finish out strong. Obviously you never want to take anything for granted, but you're really running a great campaign. And everything I've watched you do here in the state makes me feel very comfortable that you're going to be a great congressman. So good luck and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, Justin. Good night and God bless you.
All right, you too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was Justin Amash. And, again, I want you people who are listening in, that guy's got a really great future here. I hope that, obviously he gets elected and he can do the things that he's done here in the state as far as being transparent and being someone of integrity that's obviously going to follow the Constitution. I think too many times before we've elected leaders that don't pay any attention whatsoever to the Constitution. So I'm really, like I said, looking forward to seeing Justin do some great things in Congress. I'm going to reach out here and call my last guest, Saul Anuzis, who is the Michigan National Chairman. He's at some sort of event tonight, so I really appreciate him coming on the air with me. So let me give him a call real quick. Be patient here with me, folks. If you want to call in, if you have any questions, feel free to call in. The calling number is 347-996-3175. Calling in right now to get Saul on the line.
Saul Anuzis.
Saul, how you doing? This is Wayne.
Hey, Wayne.
How you doing?
You ready to go on? And when do you want to go on here?
We're on right now. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Well, I'm doing all right. Hang on 1 second. Let me just get rid of this other call, and I'll be right with you. Hang on 1 second.
No problem. So I've got Michigan's RNC National Committeeman Saul Anuzis on the line, and he's, like I said, coming on here live radio just to talk a little bit about the election campaign. So I'm thanking him for coming on the show. Everybody listening in, this is Conservatives Cool Talk Radio on your Fix Michigan Monday. It's your host, Wayne Bradley. Thank you for everyone that's listening in tonight. Got 1 week left into the election campaign here, so it's really a tight race. We got tight races going throughout the state and also throughout the country. If you're listening in, the call-in number is 347-996-3175.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem, Saul. Thank you for taking time out your schedule here. I know I caught you at the last minute here tonight. I just wanted to kind of talk to you and get your vibe here on what's going on here in the last week as we're getting close here to election time. As far as the state of Michigan, it looks like that the Republican Party is doing pretty well.
Well,
all the major elections.
Well, yeah, we're doing extremely well. If you take a look at obviously Rick Snyder, who's leading the ticket as our gubernatorial candidate. Right now, Rick Snyder has consistently been ahead in the polls over the last several weeks by double digits, which is really unheard of. Having that kind of strength is going to help everybody up and down the ticket across the board. Rick is appealing to Democrats, to independents. He's a can-do type of guy. He's a non-politician running for office. He's never held public office. He's never been involved in party politics before. This is a businessman who wanted to make a difference and make a change, and clearly that is selling well with the people of Michigan. So he's doing extremely well, and I think him at the top of the ticket is going to help everybody else. Ruth Johnson for Secretary of State, Bill Schuette at the Attorney General's office, both two statewide offices are doing extremely well. Lots of support. They will also benefit from it. And then, what's really exciting right now is obviously all these congressional races are in play. In the first district, which was the old Stupak district, you got Dan Benishek, who's doing a great job. It's a tight district that has kind of voted Democratic historically, but it's a lot of conservatives there, and Benishek is the perfect candidate for that area. We're going to have two new congressmen in the second and the third districts with Bill Huizenga and Jocelyn Amash. Two young conservatives that will be added to the Republican lists. They're in state Republican districts, so they're going to win. But you got two young conservatives going to help us out. Obviously, Dave Camp is going back for re-election. Very popular congressman up in the 4th district. The 5th district's kind of interesting. We got John Kupiak, who is running against Dale Kildee, who's a longtime incumbent. John is doing a great job of challenging him. A lot of Tea Party people there. There's a lot of races underneath him, state legislative races that are really interesting, so that's been pretty appealing. Obviously, Fred Upton is going up for re-election in the 6th without very serious challenge there, but he's, very well respected, the dean of our delegation. If the Republicans take control, he'll be one of the most powerful members of Congress, so that's a great thing to do. In the 7th district, we got Tim Walberg coming back in Mark Schauer's seat. That's a neck race. It's probably going to be one of the most expensive in the country and one of the closest in the country. But Tim's a solid conservative with a lot of support, has been doing just a fantastic job at this. That happens to be my district. So I see his signs, the door-to-door knocking and the phone calls. I mean, they're working that hard. In the 8th, you got Congressman Mike Rogers coming back. Again, strong incumbent. Doesn't have a very tough race, but he lives in a district that you can't take it for granted, so he's doing that. The other real contested one is the 9th district with Rocky Richkowski taking on Peters. That's Oakland County. Big race
my
there.
District.
Rocky's really
very tight.
Rocky's doing real well there. Yeah. And then you got, in the 10th and the 11th, you got, Candice Miller and Thad McCotter, both coming back, looking very strong. Candice Miller represents, obviously, the Macomb County area plus, and Thad McCotter in western Wayne County. The 12th district's kind of interesting with Sandy Levin. Don Valeric is doing a real good job there. I talked to him last week. I mean, they're knocking on doors. They got volunteers set up for every weekend. They're making phone calls, so that's pretty exciting. In the 13th district, which is obviously a tougher one for us, John Haller's doing a good job.
I wish that they would give John a debate. They won't. Hanson Clark won't even debate John Haller.
Of course not. Look, you got to remember, Detroit's a tough area for us. So both Haller and Ukrainiak are in tough shape there, but they got to fight the fight because look, we are not going to be a majority party until we appeal to every demographic, and I believe that over the next 10 to 20 years, the Republicans are going to have to redouble our efforts with respect to the African-American community, with respect to the Hispanic, Latino community. These people share our values. These people ought to be voting Republican. We have done a poor job of articulating our message. We've done a poor job of reaching out. Unfortunately, there have been strategies sometimes that have been used to polarize the minority communities. But these are, strong family value folks, very entrepreneurial folks. They ought to be Republican. And so
I agree with you.
We've got to do our job. We got to reach out there. And then the other seat that I think is very exciting is John Dingell's, obviously with Rob Steele, who's doing a fantastic job. Steele being a surgeon, John Dingell being the longest-serving member of Congress ever, and that seat has, been close in the polls that are out there. And I think that that could be pretty exciting. So, we're doing great on the congressional fronts. State Senate, we've held the majority. That's kind of been the Republican bedrock area. I think we'll maybe even pick up one more seat there, which will be very strong. The House Republicans have to pick up 13 seats. We're playing in over 20 seats. I think there are 10 that we have significant leads in, and there's another 10 that we're within 5 points on. So it's going to be a very competitive opportunity to take the state House, and wouldn't it be great to have a House Republican majority that could work with the Senate Republican majority that's currently there, and Rick Snyder as the governor. So I think that.
Do you think all this does this all sound like it could be resonating with people how dissatisfied they were with this, with Obama and all his policies in 2008? I mean, we're actually, like I said, a lot of the state is going red right now.
Yeah, look, I think it's a culmination of a lot of things, but I think you're right in the sense that, number one, there is look, Barack Obama ran as somebody who promised a lot, hope and change for people, and that meant working in a bipartisan manner, moving to the middle, pulling people together. He got elected, and then he and Nancy Pelosi went back to their kind of roots, which are very liberal, very radical, and moved this country in a way that nobody was prepared for. And I think it scared people. And so all across this country, you have people who are dissatisfied and concerned about the fact that Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi have this radical left-wing agenda. And kind of middle America, independent voters, even conservative Democrats are saying they've gone too far. We're borrowing too much money. We're spending too much money. And the only answer the Democrats have is we got to spend more. I mean, there was articles this week in the New York Times and stuff saying they haven't spent enough, which is really unbelievable. So, I think that that's part of it, and we just have to, keep things going. Now, in Michigan, obviously, we've got Jennifer Granholm, who promised to blow us away, and she did. We've lost, probably close to 500,000 people have moved out of Michigan in the last 10 years. She's been governor for 8. We're going to lose a congressional seat. We've got record high unemployment. If you go into the urban areas, it's probably 25 to as much as 50% with, say, young black youth, let alone, the city. Any of the major cities are probably pushing near 25%. Statewide, we're, at 13%, I think, right now. So those are devastating numbers, and it shows that, government isn't the solution. Government can sometimes be the problem, and what we have to do is be more friendly to job providers. If we want people to come to the state, we have to give them a sound economic basis, a sound tax policy, so they can move forward. And I think it's kind of a combination of a whole lot of things that are getting people voting our way.
I agree. And it was strange that it seemed before, like with Rick Snyder in particular, that him not being, quote unquote conservative enough was a detriment. But it seems like in the overall race, it's really proven to be a bonus because, like you said, he's been able to get people from both sides of the aisle to come and support him.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that he wasn't conservative enough. I just think that he had several people running against him who were more conservative than he was. I think Rick Snyder is a common sense conservative who believes in working and reaching across the aisle and working together and building a consensus, pulling in Democrats as well as independents as well as Republicans. So I think his approach is what's appealing to people, rather than being a shrill partisan. Rather than taking the hard line, he takes more of a conciliatory line. He says, let's find common ground. Let's figure out where we agree rather than concentrating and pointing to the things that we disagree on. So I do think that almost its style is maybe is as important as substance in this regard because he's making people feel comfortable that he's a different kind of politician, and I do think that's his strength.
I agree. Well, Saul, thank you so much for joining me at the last minute tonight. I appreciate it.
Well, glad to be with
I'm
you.
heading to my year anniversary soon, so I'll be calling you again to come on and join me on the year anniversary show. But I'm sure I'll see you next Tuesday somewhere in Detroit.
Yep, I'll be at the victory party, and we're looking forward to having a new governor and growing Republican majorities in our state. So hopefully we can help turn Michigan around. So thanks for all you do, and I look forward to talking to you.
All right, see you next week, Saul. Thanks again.
Take care.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye. And that was Michigan's National Committeeman, Saul Newses, the former chairman of the Michigan Republican Party. The state of Michigan has been, more than any other state, we've been beaten and battered by liberal spending, liberal policies that have left us with people moving out of Michigan, jobs not wanting to come here because of all the taxation and regulation. Government does not create jobs, and a lot of times they can get in the way of other people creating them. So I think now that people are starting to get the message that this is not working on a national or a local scale. It's just not working, and we need something different. Rick Snyder, who I'll say again, he offers a clear difference between the career politicians of the Verge Veneros, and again, even when he was in the primary, he was someone that was not involved in politics, and I think that resonates with a lot of people. A lot of people don't like career politicians at this point. That's become almost a dirty word. So I think that moving forward here to fix Michigan, Rick Snyder is going to offer the best opportunity. And again, I think it's a pretty clear choice. We're going into this final week here, and I think everyone needs to get out and make sure that they're spreading. That's the only way that we can help out these candidates is by spreading the word. Get your signs, go knock on some doors, help out your favorite candidates, help them get elected, because at the end of the day, if you haven't done anything to help, if you're not getting out there being involved, then you're not doing enough to help get this country in the right position, the state in the right position. So really get out there in this last week or so. People, go to your Fix Michigan centers and pick up some signs, go knock on some doors, help out people like Dan Tallis. Over there, who's running for state rep. He's a great guy. He's a great candidate. Dan, I'm sure you're going to do well. I'm looking forward to seeing you go through and win that state rep spot. So support people like Dan Tyler. Support people like Rocky. You got to get out there and make sure that we're doing our due diligence and to get the right people in the positions to help out the people. So we got about 2 minutes left here. I want to tell everyone that we're moving into my. Again, I was telling Saul, a year anniversary to the show. I'm going to be switching the name up of the show, probably to the Wayne Bradley Show. I've been getting input from my listeners, so if you have any suggestions, feel free to send them over to me. I'm looking at the WB Show, the Wayne Bradley Show. We're going to do some things. I want to be able to invite more people on the show. Conservative is cool. Talk radio kind of scares away some of the libs and even some of the independents. I want to be able to get more opinions, more voices on this show, so we can truly dissect and discuss the proper the visions of what people see, how we can fix Michigan, fix this country, because that's what makes America great is the bowl of ideas. You shouldn't be expecting everyone to agree on everything, and I don't think that we as a country should that's what we should be pushing for. We want the open exchange of ideas. And that's what I want to do on my show. I want to bring a more of an independent perspective from the show. And, again, we're not going to change much. I'm going to try to bring on some, obviously, more guests. But we really want to push the envelope as far as independent thinking, make people think about the people they're electing, leaders. Again, people like Justin Amash, who are actually being transparent, are the people you need to be supporting, because they're looking out for the people. They're not trying to hide things, and again, that's what we want. We want on-the-spot transparency. It doesn't get any more transparent than going on Facebook or on Twitter and posting exactly what's going on, why things aren't getting passed, who's holding things up, and I think that's the kind of transparency, and those are the kind of changes that we need from our leaders. So, again, follow the people in your area. Make sure you're supporting the right candidates. Make sure you're doing your due diligence. Call, ask questions. Make sure your questions are getting answered. That's the only way you're going to know if this person is the right person for you. Again, the people that I brought on the show are good quality candidates who can help get America on the right path and get Michigan on the right path. So thank you for everyone that's been listening. Thanks to Justin and Amash, Saul and Nuzes, and JJ. Have a good evening. God bless you.